and we're going to talk about data fabrics and data mesh. And the reason why we talk about these strategy sessions typically early in the customer summits is because the way that we see the marketplace and the way that we see strategy with enterprise software and really data management, it influences quite a bit of our multi-year investments. Just like many of you who are working in your organizations, we have to plan ahead, often by several quarters and in some cases several years, because some of our larger projects will just naturally take that long to complete. Even with a large team like we have, some big changes and big pivots in our technology foundation can often take some time. And so we think constantly, we're continually kind of reevaluating where we think the data management market is going. There's a tremendous amount of noise out there. There's a lot of, pundits and experts giving feedback. You see everything from the data fabric stories to the data mesh. Data mesh is hot. Some people think it's not. There's the streaming data mesh. There's sort of the business object data mesh. There's the architecture and design trends around application development and event sourcing. There's a lot of ongoing discussion continually around data lakes and data lakehouses and the different formats that kind of go along with lakehouse architectures, the differences between designing data management for analytics versus designing data management for operational use cases. There's also a kind of a macro level discussion happening across the industry and across vendors now around centralized data management paradigm versus decentralized data management paradigm. So there's just a lot of different points of view going on right now between, bloggers, analysts, vendors, technology experts, et cetera. And so we wanted to kind of give you our point of view on what's going on in the market around a couple of different areas. And so we kind of see a few different enterprise software markets colliding here. We've kind of got the distributed SQL database market. These are technologies like Yugabyte and CockroachDB, Google Spanner. Oracle also provides some distributed sharded capabilities. This is kind of one area where, in fact, in some circles, they talk about this as a database mesh, for example, really distributed relational engines. There's also the data fabric market area. This is around a $10 to $12 billion enterprise software market. It's really kind of the evolution of what we used to call data integration and governance, really evolving into more of under this broader umbrella of data fabrics. We see the lakehouse architectures, again, another $12 to $15 billion kind of market domain that is really a direct evolution from, in the old days, what was the Hadoop and big data market, kind of broadening out to become more of the data lake market. And then now with the introduction of a lot of the SQL and ACID capabilities on top of big data, we see the lakehouse architectures becoming very popular, particularly in the cloud domain. And that's being driven quite a bit from, predominantly from the analytics use cases, I would say. And then there's this sort of domain around best practices and architecture, design principles, kind of coming up, becoming more popular, certainly in the last 2 years, around what's called the data mesh architectures, really emphasizing distributed data architectures and the interactions between data producers and data consumers within an organization. And so these four markets are kind of colliding. A lot of, let's say, ideas and principles, design principles, kind of being interchanged between these four markets. And it kind of raises the question from a standpoint, at least for this summit that we're here today for, how does GoldenGate fit in these markets? And if you think about what GoldenGate is providing, GoldenGate provides that highly consistent transaction replication to distribute data transactions between different physical locations. Your sources and your targets can be highly distributed across cloud regions, across availability zones, availability domains, or even within the data center across different physical databases. But you're typically distributing transactions, either locally or even globally at planet scale. GoldenGate also provides that foundation for stream processing. As many of you already know, we provide a streaming analytics and a stream processing capability that's part of GoldenGate for big data, as well as standalone with streaming analytics. Everything around GoldenGate is built for real-time event processing, almost always sub-second, and in some cases, millisecond level processing characteristics, both for the data processing side as well as the data replication side. We support hundreds or thousands of different combinations of platforms and data technologies. Everything starting about 5 to 7 years ago, everything has shifted to become microservices native, which means we're now deploying within these service mesh style of architectures, supporting Docker and Kubernetes kind of as a foundation layer. And then, that leads to a number of design patterns where we're supporting, decentralized data architecture design from an enterprise standpoint. And we're also supporting more of these data product type use cases where streaming architectures are being used to deliver data products in real time or near real time. And so when you think about the value that brings to these different markets that are colliding, you see a lot of overlap in each of these areas. So for the distributed database market, GoldenGate provides that core asynchronous logical replication with really what I think, this is no exaggeration, we have the most sophisticated conflict detection and resolution for asynchronous transaction replication in the market, much superior than any of the distributed database engines that are out there. But it allows us to support the platinum tier of cross-region multi-active databases in the Oracle scenario, but we also support non-Oracle logical replication as well. We've got a number of use case patterns with technologies like HP nonstop databases, as well as SQL Server and DB2 databases, et cetera, where we're able to provide these active solutions. GoldenGate's also at the very heart of the data fabric strategies that we're investing in going forward, provides that core real-time foundation for streaming data integration, real-time data replication. As we see more and more customers shifting their data fabric strategies towards a real-time architecture, GoldenGate kind of supports that shifting dynamic away from legacy batch systems and towards real-time systems. From a lakehouse architecture standpoint, there's really two big areas where GoldenGate is supplemental to a lakehouse. One is in the ingestion pattern. What we're seeing is that GoldenGate is widely used by thousands of customers to stream data events into the lakehouse, typically into the raw data layer, or what many may refer to as the bronze layer of the data lakehouse. But what we also support with GoldenGate is we can deploy stream processing pipelines inside the lakehouse to do the data cleansing, the data transformation, and the data standardization workloads inside the lakehouse as part of streaming pipelines that run native to Apache Spark or Databricks Spark based workloads. And so that's part of the GoldenGate stream analytics capabilities, supporting, again, the ingestion as well as the pipelines. And then down on the data mesh side, a lot of really interesting design practices kind of being spawned from the data mesh way of thinking. What we see is this focus around data products and data product thinking in the context of a streaming architecture. That means being able to deliver streams of data in a discoverable and well-defined way. And that's something that we are launching now with GoldenGate 23 with a new async API-based way of delivering subscriber services to data consumers. And GoldenGate is also widely used by our customers in these event sourcing architecture patterns where, in a mesh of microservices, you can use an event sourcing architecture to transmit data events between discrete microservices, and GoldenGate is often used to transmit those highly consistent data events between discrete microservices in a large-scale distributed architecture. So we see a lot of different use case patterns going on here where GoldenGate's used. What we're going to do kind of for the remainder of this session is we're going to drill in a little bit more to the data mesh area and take a closer look there. Again, there's a lot of market noise around data mesh, a lot of different data definitions of what a data mesh is out there. We actually at Oracle, we have a free workshop around data mesh that goes through kind of the broader market definitions of what's going on out there and how other Oracle technologies fit in the data mesh storyline. But for GoldenGate, we really most closely fit in this area that is being called out around what's called streaming data mesh architectures. And so GoldenGate provides that real-time replication and stream processing foundation to support streaming data mesh. And when we think about what a data mesh is doing at a high level, our basic definition of the data mesh is to provide that decentralized platform. So that's key, is the decentralization of the data. And then what we're doing here is we're helping connect the data producers with the data consumers in order to exchange data products. And so the medium that's being exchanged, or the item, if you will, that's being exchanged on the platform is the data product. And the users, the user personas that we're supporting are the producers of the data and the consumers of the data. And we're able, with GoldenGate and stream processing, to provide that core platform that can run in a distributed, decentralized architecture. And so that's really a big part of our thinking going forward. Whether you choose to call it, a data fabric, a data mesh, even a database mesh, or something else, it's really about providing that cohesive, unified platform that can help connect the organizations and people producing data with the organizations and people that are consuming data. And importantly, you want to be able to do that in a way that supports these higher level data entities that we're going to call data products. And so, again, regardless of what you call the different things going on here, there's two big macro trends going on. One is, you've heard me talk about decentralization of data. There's lots of reasons organizations are becoming increasingly decentralized. There's mergers and acquisitions, there's globalization and global regulatory concerns. There's the simple fact that IT organizations often mirror the budgets that are allocated for people organizations. So therefore, you kind of wind up with these IT silos that reflect the budgeting process. And then there's also multi-cloud. In some cases, people are choosing to deliberately pursue a multi-cloud strategy. There could be some benefits there around resiliency and cost reduction. But in more cases, I actually see a lot of large organizations, they're going the multi-cloud direction more as a matter of accident, where they've got different business units and different IT organizations choosing Amazon for some things, Azure for other things, Google for other things, Oracle Cloud for other things. The next thing you know, you've got, 2, 3, 4 different public cloud providers all within this broader IT context. And you say, well, how on earth am I going to, begin to integrate my data and align my data architecture across these distributed architectures? And so that's something we just don't see going away. We don't see it getting simpler over time. We think that this push towards decentralization, probably for the remainder of our careers, will become even more decentralized. The other big macro level trend that we see going on here is this shift towards data product thinking and data product strategies. And so at the highest level, again, we have a whole workshop around just data products. We don't have time to get into it here today, but at the highest level, the thing to understand is it's a shift in thinking towards understanding that the value proposition of data is when the data actually goes to work. Data can have inherent value if it's just sitting somewhere statically in a repository, can certainly have ROI, but the old industry trope around, hey, data is the new oil, that's really the wrong metaphor. That gives you this sort of idea of data sitting out there in a puddle somewhere, just having this inherent value to it. The real value of data is when it actually goes to work and does a job. And that's really, it's about thinking of your data in a more customer-centric way. Who are the consumers of the data? What are they trying to do with the data? How can you provide more value in your data to the people that are consuming it? And so that's really driving the shift towards data product thinking and data product strategy. And we see, a pretty broad scale shift in the industry around thinking about data as a product. There's a lot of different examples of data products. The one that people usually think about is, again, records sitting out in a repository somewhere, or maybe sitting in your data lake or your data lakehouse. It's true. Those are, there can be good examples of data products that are merely collections of data sitting somewhere. But you can also have API-driven data streams where the data product is the API and the stream of events. You can have analytic data products where the product is the actual narrative or the story that the data is telling you. So you're going beyond just providing a set of records. You're also providing some analysis of what the data is intending to tell you. And then there's also data products in the data science realm that really exist around the features that we develop in our machine learning models and how we define those features and the algorithms that get built in the machine learning models themselves. And so these are also part of the productization of data. One good customer example that sort of aligns very much with the GoldenGate approach towards data mesh is this example from Netflix. You can go kind of read this yourself. They've talked about this as recently as a few months ago on their own Netflix tech blog. But if you think about data mesh the way Netflix is thinking about it, they've got producers of data that are generating change data events from here MySQL or Postgres databases, publishing those data events as DML or DDL events, which are being refined and processed. So here there's curation happening, there's cleansing happening, there's enrichment happening, and then you're taking that refined data and you're sending it out to the consumers. And consumers can consume that data in a variety of different ways by syncing it to a target data store, but by also pushing these refined and curated events directly to the consumers of the data. So here you have this producer-consumer dynamic. You've got a real-time architecture where the enrichment and refinement on the data is happening in real time, and you can distribute this broadly over a mix of IT environments. Now, Netflix happens to run this pretty broadly across an AWS environment, but many of their events can span from AWS to on-prem. And then you can really imagine the same type of event-driven architecture can also operate at planet scale with cross-region replication as well. And so this is really reflecting the core pattern that we call an event streaming backbone. This is, again, not an Oracle pattern here. This is fine. It's from Towards Data Science. You've got your producers generating events. You've got your real-time event processing happening. And then you have your consumers consuming the enriched events. And that's exactly what we're providing as a foundation from our core GoldenGate and stream analytics technologies. Also, the bigger architecture supports a number of other Oracle tools like Oracle Integration Cloud, for example. But we can generate events from databases. We can capture events from applications on premises and SaaS applications. We can also capture events from IoT and real world devices. We take any of those events in, we can attach those events to reference data. We can score the events in real time using production scoring models for AI and ML, which can be plugged into the GoldenGate technologies. And then we can now take these curated, enriched, and refined events and send them downstream to consumers, those consumers being your data warehouse, your data lake, your data science consumers, even your systems of engagement as applications. And so this is really the core data mesh, real-time data fabric pattern that we see the GoldenGate technology evolving to support. You might ask yourself, well, that's great, Jeff, but what are the data products that live in this architecture? There's really three kinds of data products that GoldenGate can provide. One is directly as a streaming data product. GoldenGate can publish streams of events directly to consumers. We do that today through the GoldenGate for Big Data architecture, but we've also already announced with GoldenGate 23C a new subscription API for REST-based subscriptions coming directly to the GoldenGate service. This is using async API as an industry standard. You can automatically generate software bindings to read the payloads from async API compatible APIs. And your data consumers can pick up an exact one stream of change records as JSON formatted events directly from GoldenGate. We also have live alerting and dashboarding in GoldenGate Stream Analytics. You've got, I think, 12 or 13 different charting capabilities that you can publish in a web browser-based analytics dashboard where you can set up all kinds of different alerts and thresholds. You can plug in AI and ML scoring as well in this, and that constitutes a type of analytic data product. And then obviously I mentioned many of you are already using GoldenGate to publish change data events, DML and DDL events into downstream repositories, which are the kinds of data collections that would be considered as downstream data products, where you're picking it up from your Kafka topics, you're picking data up from your repositories or your lakehouses. So we believe there's a ton of benefits from building out your decentralized data architectures with streaming at the heart of it. We realize there's a lot of allure, I guess, to centralized data ownership, where this idea that you can kind of create one giant repository with all your data in this one giant repository. What we see in practice is that can work for specific data domains. And so a particular business unit, a particular use case, a particular data domain, you can create these data lakes that solve a specific problem. But in the context of a larger organization, there's typically more than one. You got more than one lakehouse, you've got more than one data warehouse or data mart, you've got different types of analytic query engines. You probably have half a dozen different BI and analytics tools. And so what that really drives is the need for a type of decentralized data ownership pattern, where what you're interchanging between the organizations are these data products, and those data products can move seamlessly between your different use cases, again, supporting a variety of different lakehouses, a variety of different warehouses, a variety of different data marts, a variety of different operational systems. And so that kind of heartbeat, if you will, of how to get to a modern distributed architecture will benefit most from laying the foundation for real-time streaming as that backbone. And it's not just GoldenGate, right? GoldenGate data events and stream processing are at the heart of it. That allows us to work with all the data and provide high consistency. But we also align with our app integration technologies as well. So Oracle integration allows us to bring application level events for business process automation, robotic process automation, hyper automation, et cetera, where we're joining up business processes as well as data events as part of that same mesh architecture. And so between the GoldenGate and Oracle integration technologies, we support, thousands of different integrations from all the major clouds, all the major different application providers, all the major different data stores and lake houses, et cetera, et cetera. So, if you need something integrated with your core technologies, chances are between GoldenGate and Oracle Integration Cloud, I'm sure we can, find a way to get you what you need in order to integrate your data across those different environments. And so just to wrap up here, the specific problems that we solve around application integration, hyper automation for processes, robotic process automation, data integration, which traditionally was batch-oriented ETL. Now we see moving more and more towards real-time extract and real-time data processing. There's the continuous ingestion for analytics. So this is feeding messaging systems like Apache Kafka, but also feeding the bronze layer of your lakehouse architecture. And then not to lose sight of one of the core use cases is on the operational side of the shop, supporting these highly distributed SQL engines. And so providing asynchronous logical replication in a geographically distributed database. And so that's something that Oracle GoldenGate can provide both for Oracle databases, but also for non-Oracle databases, like, again, Tandem Nonstop, SQL Server, DB2, et cetera. So all of these kinds of, I call them sometimes a database mesh. So creating these database mesh use cases. And so, yeah, with that, we've only scratched the surface here. Definitely encourage everyone. We just, this week, we've actually published a new ebook that gets more into this data fabric, data mesh discussion. This ebook happens to be focused on the retail industry, but a lot of the technology and use cases that we talk about really apply to other industries as well. So if there's an interest, you can take a look at this ebook directly. We'll put the URL in the chat window for everybody to pull. But also, if your organizations are interested in a workshop around data mesh capabilities, we have free workshops from Oracle that you can certainly nominate your organization for, and we'll bring a team of experts in and share some of our latest thinking around data mesh capabilities.